coming. I've been pretty ill, so my voice might not be as strong as I would like it. So I hope that you can all hear me. So let's begin.
Okay, so the down button, you know.
All right, this picture shows in red the borderline of Northeast Philadelphia and Bucks County. Obviously, there's, you can see that it also borders Montgomery County and the river, but the Poquessing Creek forms the northern boundary of Northeast Philadelphia. In the first presentation that I gave, we covered 10 different bridges. Very quickly, just so you don't think that if you didn't see the first part that I am skipping over something. At the top left is the Trevose Road Bridge, which is the furthest you can go out with Philadelphia on one side and Bucks County on the other. The next is the CSX Railroad Bridge, that's in Somerton. And right next to it, there's what might be a concrete path walking bridge. Next is the Carter Road Mill Race Bridge. You can see a little man on it. We don't know if there was an actual bridge over the creek, but there was one over the Mill Race. Next is the Roosevelt Boulevard or US 1 Bridge, built in 1921. Poquessing Creek Trail. The Century Lane Bridge was built in 1853 at the end of Mechanicsville. And the last one we covered at the previous meeting was the Dunks Ferry Road Bridge at the end of Parkwood Manor. So now we're going to start on the second part. There were 10 in part one. There will be 14 in this one. Knights Road Bridge, which is shown here on the left as a ford and on the right as a bridge. The road itself is widely used route from Bucks County into Northeast Philadelphia, cutting through Byberry and Tarsdale, and it has done so for over 200 years. It's been known as Southampton Road, Southampton Creek Road, Atkinson Road, and Knights Road. On the 1819 map, John Mellish map on the left shows a time when there was no bridge crossing the Poquessing at nights, and traffic crossed from Bucks County into Philadelphia and vice versa by fording the creek. By the time that the 1943 map, Ellis map, was published, which is on the right, there was a bridge on the Knights Road, which crossed the creek. I don't know when the bridge that appeared in the 1843 map was built, but I do know that it was replaced in 1926. The first photo shows the stone approaches to the bridge on each side with a concrete deck. The bridge has not yet been paved in this picture. The photo on the right shows a creek view of the bridge. It has a concrete upper deck, a steel subdeck, and a concrete pillar support. It's possible that the previous bridge was all stone and that the approaches are from that previous bridge. As you can see from the present day creek view photos, the stone approaches are gone and are replaced with wing walls. There is still a concrete deck and steel subdeck, but they are newer and of a different design. Also, the pillar support is gone. The second photo shows the street view of the bridge. As you can see, the surface of a concrete bridge is usually paved in concrete. That and the type of railing used is a good indicator when you're traveling along a road that you're crossing a creek. In 1829, this is the next bridge we're coming to, I'm sorry. This is the Gordon's Mill Bridge. In 1829, 34 residents of Byberry Township petitioned the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas to have a bridge erected connecting a public road that ran through John Hilborn's land from Knights Road to the Poquessing Creek. The road was located approximately where the northern entrance is to Philadelphia Mills. On the left-hand side is a hand-drawn map showing the road running through John Hilborn's land, which is sort of a little lower than center and goes diagonally down. The location of the bridge is circled in red and his mill is in blue. You can see a newly laid road in Bucks County on the what will be the other side of the bridge on the land of Thomas Vandergrift. A year after petitioning for the bridge, John Hilborn lost his land and mill to debt. John Gordon bought the property and the road and bridge were listed on the city plan as Gordon's Mill Road and Gordon's Mill Bridge. The 1843 Ellet map shows Gordon's Mill Road written out on the Bucks County side. Gordon's Mill Road, the house, the mill, and the bridge were all gone by 1962. The road and bridge were struck from the city plan in '62 to make way for the new Liberty Bell Park racetrack. Also, Bensalem Country Club, founded as Cornwell's Golf Club, was established in 1960. So there would be no need for a Gordon's Mill Road or a bridge on the Bucks County side of the creek either. A few years ago, when Jack and I were creek walking, which is what I call walking in the creek and photographing bridges and scenery from a creek view, we came across a crumbling stone and concrete structure sitting in the creek. It was located in the area of the creek at the southern end of Philadelphia Mills, near the movie theater on the Philadelphia side, and near the Robert Yezzi Memorial Field on Unionville Road on the Bensalem side. These photos show what looks like the concrete deck of a bridge with one attached stone wall. There were enough stones around the area that it could have been parts of the other wall. The creek is very deep in this location, and I couldn't get any closer to get better photos. I don't know if this was a private bridge or if it was a bridge at all, but it's an interesting mystery. As I mentioned in part 1, bridges were often built near mills. The second bridge that we come to was built near Knight's Mill. On Reading Howe's 1792 map of the state of Pennsylvania, a mill is shown at the location, but no bridge. According to A History of the Townships of Byberry and Moreland in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by Joseph C. Martindale, Knight's Mill is probably the oldest mill in either Byberry or Moreland townships. The mill was rebuilt by Daniel Knight in 1815. In 1816, the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas was petitioned to build a bridge across the Poquessing Creek, connecting Philadelphia and Bucks counties near the property of Daniel Knight at the road that leads to Byberry Meeting. And this is a picture of that bridge petition. On the 1819 John Mellish map It shows that Daniel Knight's grist mill and presumably the first bridge at that location. And you see on the map, I have circled that, and there's a little, looks like a sun. And so when you look at a map and you see something that looks like a sun like that, that indicates a mill. These are photos of the mill on the left and Daniel and Elizabeth Knight's home on the right, which was pretty amazing in size and looks like it is a very, very nice home. All right, this is the date stone from the Knight Mill, and it's one of the many fascinating artifacts in the historical collection of Byberry Meeting. It calls the mill Byberry Lower Mill. I couldn't find any information about when the mill began going by this name, and I know later on it was called the Knight's Mill again. So it might have been called this because of the Gordon's Mill that we spoke about before, being located in the upper part of the creek and Knight's Mill being in the lower part of the stream. I spoke earlier about a mill at this location in 1792. Daniel Knight rebuilt the mill in 1815. So when it says that it was built in 1815, it was actually rebuilt in 1815. And then J. Knight, who is one of the many Jonathan Knights, I could not figure out which one because there's Jonathan Knights in every generation of Knights, but he rebuilt it again in 1874. So the 1874 mill was actually a rebuild of a rebuild. We know that a bridge was built in 1816. This bridge appears to be early 20th century. It is unknown if a bridge or bridges were built between the two, but this was the last. The bridge was known as the Byberry Road Gravel Pike Bridge. It was a single lane concrete bridge. It's not known when it was built. It connected Byberry Road in Philadelphia with Gravel Pike in Cornwallis Heights in Bensalem. The Gordon's Mill Bridge was lost due to the building of the Liberty Bell Racetrack, but the Byberry Road Gravel Pike Bridge was lost to another modern development, Franklin Mills Mall, now Philadelphia Mills. This is an aerial view of Franklin Mills Mall prior to the addition of Walmart. The red circle in the upper left-hand corner is where the bridge was. During the racetrack heyday, many of its patrons used the bridge as a shortcut to Route 13. The residents of Rywall Park, a neighborhood on the Bensalem side of the bridge, complained that even a small portion of the anticipated 40,000 per day cars traveling to and from the mall would be too much of a nuisance for their neighborhood. In addition to that, it was reported that there was undermining to the bridge's foundation, which made it unsafe for heavy traffic. The bridge was closed to traffic on June 20th, 1988, and was gone before the mall opened on May 11th, 1989. Little remains of the bridge today. An obvious indication that there once was a bridge there was that at this location, the roads on each side of the creek abruptly just end at the creek's edge. There are almost no remains of the bridge on the Philadelphia side as seen on the left. There is much more evidence on the Bucks County side, which is on the right. Our next bridge is actually two bridges, the Woodhaven Road bridges. In 1962, work was begun on the This is an aerial view of the bridge. The double bridge being built, as I said, one side carrying eastbound traffic, one carrying westbound traffic. And you can see exactly where it crosses the Poquessing because of the different surface color, again, because of it being made of concrete and steel, because of road freezing and things like that. They don't put asphalt on it. So it's a concrete topping. It's not a topping, but a surface. Okay. The next bridge is the Red Lion Road Bridge. The Red Lion Road Bridge is a 3-span stone arch bridge on Red Lion Road between Nice Road and Route 13 in Andalusia. The location of the future bridge was previously a ford in the Poquessing Creek, slightly above the confluence of the Byberry and Poquessing Creeks. As late as 1833, the local residents identified the need for a bridge. They petitioned the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas in that year to have a bridge built there, citing that the cost for them to build it was too much to bear. The bridge was not built until 12 years later in 1845, and it was at a cost of $17,500. So I'm guessing they were right, it was too much of a cost to bear. And this is what the bridge petition looked like, and signed by some of the residents. On the 1843 Elliott map, which was published 2 years before the Red Lion Road Bridge was built, you can see when you study the map that it appears that it is likely that Nice Road, and as I said before, sometimes called Southampton Road, Southampton Creek Road, Atkinson Road, whatever, but it probably ended at right where you see Rich at the top right-hand side. That's Red Lion Road coming out from the other side of Nice Road. It really looks like, with the bridge being called the Red Lion Road Bridge and going where it goes, that probably Nice Road ended and Red Lion Road took over and went down in that crooked pattern down to the creek. Now, it would have been much easier to have a road go straight, as the red line indicates, but that would mean getting rights of way from different owners and everything. The road was following property lines at the time, so that's why it's so crooked. But I'm guessing that's why it's called Red Lion Road when it seems so far away from Red Lion Road. And I hope you understand what I was saying there.
Red line and red line.
Red line and red line, yeah. Okay. The Red Lion Road Bridge provided an easier path for worshipers from Tarsdale to get to Byberry Meeting. It also furnished those in Byberry Township who needed to take the ferry into the city with a more direct route to the river. Perhaps no one used the bridge more from 1870 to 1820 than the Drexel. This is the top of the bridge, the surface of the bridge. I'm sorry. And at the very end there, you can see 2 pillars, and that is the entrance to the Morell estate. Perhaps no one used the bridge more from 1870 to 1920 than the Drexel and Morell families and their visitors. Both had homes in Center City that they traveled to, often by river, riding across the bridge to get to the wharf. Both had friends and family in Tarsdale and Bucks County, and they would travel via the bridge. Catholic Saint Catherine Drexel and both her birth sisters and religious sisters traveled often over the bridge up to Cornwall's Heights to her new mother house. The entrance to the Morell estate was just west of the bridge, which can be seen in this photo. And I have it circled here. Peter Lamline, whose family worked for the Morells, told me that after Louise Drexel Morell died and the estate was sold, the entryway and gate were just plowed down and the remains left near the creek. This is a close-up of the entryway with gate for the Morell estate. It was just past the bridge on Red Lion Road. And this is what it looks like then when the Morells owned it. And as you can see, it's very neatly kept with a fence around it, just at the edge of the bridge there. And then today, it's very overgrown because, you know, the city owns it, and they're not, you know, taking care of it like it was their own home. But you can see along the edge of the creek, there's a lot of big stones. And if you could see further into that growth, there's a lot of big stones that were part of that, just plowing down that whole beautiful entryway into the estate. Poquessing Creek Bridge crosses the Poquessing Creek on Frankfort Avenue, also called the King's Highway, Bristol Pike, Frankfort Avenue, or Route 13. The bridge itself also goes by other names: Frankfort Avenue Bridge, the Frankfort Avenue Bridge over the Poquessing Creek, and as I'm calling it, the Poquessing Creek Bridge. The present bridge shown here is a 20th century bridge, but the history of a bridge at this location goes back to the 17th century. Thomas Fairman was a deputy surveyor for Pennsylvania who arrived here in 1681. In 1684, Fairman surveyed the property of Joseph Groden and his neighbors that lied between the Delaware River and the Poquessing Creek in Bucks County. On the map drawn by Fairman, it shows a bridge on the King's Highway at the Poquessing Creek. And the word bridge is written out there and it's circled in red. The survey was dated February 12th, 1684. As you can see on the map, the King's Highway was still pretty much of an Indian trail at this point. This was the first bridge built on the Poquessing Creek. This survey was given to me by Joe Menkovich, who is a researcher extraordinaire. I can't say enough about Joe and his accomplishments, but he found the survey in the state archives, and I have to thank him for passing it on to me, because prior to that, I had no idea that there was a bridge there at this early a date. It isn't known when the bridge on Fairman's survey was actually built. We just know that it was there in 1684. We don't know what materials it was made from or how wide it was, but what we do know is that it mustn't have been good enough, because the Provincial Council ordered a new bridge to be built. And I'll read this because it's hard to make out. Quote, "At a council held at the house of Phineas Pemberton, 10th June, 1697, ordered that a bridge in the road over Poquessing Creek be forthwith made by the counties of Philadelphia and Bucks at their equal charge," end quote. And that's from the Provincial Records, Volume C, page 44. This is a quick view of the 1697 two-span stone arch Poquessing Creek Bridge. It's taken from the from the city side, looking up, you can see the red line in to the left of the bridge. And little, I'm not quite sure whether that was a toll booth or whatever, to the right. Two men walking across the bridge. So that was from the same year that the Pennypack Creek Bridge at Frankfort Avenue was built in 1697. The 20th century brought demands on the bridge that it wasn't built to handle. Travel by trolley was popular. However, passengers needed to disembark a trolley on the Philadelphia side of the creek and board another trolley in Andalusia to travel north. A wider, sturdier bridge was needed to handle both north and south trolley traffic. In 1902, the city of Philadelphia and Bucks County began the task of removing the 205-year-old bridge and replacing it with a modern barrel arch bridge, concrete bridge. So this is what it looked like when they were doing the building, shoring up on sides, and I'm assuming that people had used the Red Line Road Bridge to get up to Bucks County during this period that it was being built, but it took 2 years to take it down and put up a new bridge. And this is a photo of the 1904 Poquessing Creek Bridge shortly after it opened. The 1904 Poquessing Creek Bridge is an early example of a concrete bridge with supporting steel members. It's believed to be the first bridge of this type to be built east of the Mississippi. Information on this bridge can be found as part of the Pennsylvania Historic Bridges Recording Project and the Historic American Engineering Record, which is referred to as HAER, H-A-E-R, number PA471. Now, Pennsylvanians love their stone arch bridges, but they're not fans of the plain concrete bridge. To give the bridge more character, the bridge has an exterior made to appear like stone by scoring the spandrel walls. The bridge parapets feature urn-shaped balusters. The bridge was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1988 because delegates from Massachusetts to the First Continental Congress were thought to have crossed the Poquessing at this point after they dined at the Red Lion Inn in 1774. We are now going to be covering a length of the creek that only spans 0.2 of a mile. In that short distance, there is or has been 6 different bridges. On this 1887 G.M. Hopkins map, 2 bridges are circled. One crossed the bridge off of Tarsdale Road, later called Stevenson Lane, and the second was an extension of James Street over the Poquessing into Bucks County. Getting to the Tarsdale Road Bridge was not easy if you were coming from East Tarsdale and wanted to go to Andalusia. You needed to travel, I'll show you. Now from the bottom, you're coming up Grant Avenue. You're going north. So you would have to travel north on Grant Avenue.
West.
West, I'm sorry. Cross State Road, keep going up Grant Avenue, under the railroad bridge to a point where the bridge crosses the Poquessing, then goes back down under the railroad bridge and out to State Road, the other side. And it was a dilapidated old wooden bridge from a description that I found in a history of Tarsdale. And it was taken down sometime between 1887 and 1894, or maybe it just fell down and that was not replaced because in 1876, a new bridge was built, and that was the extension of James Street across the Poquessing. And it was built by the commissioners of Philadelphia and Bucks counties at a cost of $10,000. It was made of iron with a high causeway. It was sturdier and more modern than the old wooden bridge, but it was still inconvenient. Work on State Road had started in 1870 and reached Grand Avenue by 1876, but it could not proceed at that location over the Poquessing Creek because the property on the other side of Grant Avenue was private property. That is, it was the border of Edward M. Hopkins' property and the estate of Charles McAllister. Hopkins was a relative, a brother-in-law of Charles McAllister. The James Street Bridge crossed the creek exactly at the western boundary of the Hopkins land. The photo shows just how close the gate was to the bridge. So if you look at the top right hand, that's what it looks like today, kind of overgrown and everything, but you can see the similarity. There's a hole like to look through there on the bottom. That was the older picture. And to the left, you can see what the whole gateway into the Hopkins estate looked like. Where that hole is where that motorcycle is parked now. And then the, it moved, went forth to form the gate. So, and you can see on the picture on the left, there's a sign from the edge of the bridge that's right there. So the bridge is almost touching that stone wall. Let me go back, see where the stone wall is and how close the bridge is. So there's a walkway there, but it goes pretty close to the property line. A couple of years ago, while driving eastbound on Grand Avenue, I noticed a temporary work bridge was set up crossing the creek near the I-95 bridge. Work needed to be done on 95, and the creek was constantly being crossed with workers and equipment and such. And it just made me wonder, like, how many bridges at different times cross the Poquessing that we don't even know about. You can find out from maps and from things that were written, certain bridges that were there, but maybe there were a lot more. And a couple weeks later, that bridge was just gone. There was no indication that it had ever been there. And this is the I-95, or one of the I-95 bridges over the Poquessing. Interstate 95 runs from Florida to Maine. It runs parallel to the Delaware River through Philadelphia. The area of 95 that crosses the Poquessing Creek was built in the early 1960s. And this bridge, like Woodhaven Road Bridge, is also a double bridge, with one portion carrying northbound traffic and one carrying southbound. The following description is a quote from an unpublished history of Tarsdale. Quote, "When the lines of the Pennsylvania Railroad were first run through Tarsdale, they made a crossing of the creek over a very high trestle bridge made of hemlock lumber. It accommodated 2 tracks and was kept in use until 1886. By that time, it was so rickety and unsafe that it was a menace to the public and was braced and rebraced until its aspect was quite astonishing. The present stone bridge, finished in 1887, was widened in the spring of 1912 to accommodate 4 tracks." Now, I'm sure you can tell that the towards the back of the picture, the two bridges, they're I-95, and then it's the railroad bridge. And it was a 4-span stone bridge, as I said, built in 1887, because the old one was wooden, and I just can't even imagine riding a train over a rickety, braced and rebraced wooden bridge. But so it was. The piping in the forefront of the picture is where the James Street Bridge was, and by the time this picture was taken, it had been removed. As stated previously, the wooden bridge off Tarsdale Road and the James Street Bridge were used to get from East Tarsdale to Andalusia because the McAllister estate extended through State Road. In 1968, the building of a bridge across the Poquessing on State Road was approved at a cost of $260,000. A tiny little bridge there that's circled. However, in 1969, President Nixon wanted no federal funds to be used for road building and/or improvements as one of the many ways to help balance the budget. When the state ran out of funding, they couldn't get federal funding, so the bridge, although approved, was not built at that time. Okay, missing a picture here. Finally, in 1971, the State Road Bridge was built connecting Philadelphia and Bucks County on State Road. It's a multi-girder steel bridge and cost $552,716. So it over doubled in price in that 2-year time that they had to wait for funds. And this is the State Road Bridge. And as our sun sets on the last bridge, we end our journey down the Poquessing. And I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? I'm sitting next to, you don't have to put it on me. I have taken all the questions down. Let me just check to see if there's any more. No, okay. So there's like 6 or 7 questions. Fred, everybody can hear me, right?
I assume they can.
Okay. All right, so the first question is, why did petitions have to go through the court system?
Well, if you wanted the city to pay for the bridge, they had to approve it. Some bridges were built by, private citizens on their land and all, but the city wanted to make sure that they felt that their money was going to be, spent wisely. So you had to petition. They came out, they looked at the location. If they approved the location, they came back several times in the process of it being built to make sure that they approved of the way it was being built, that it was, again, that their money was going in the right place, it was being built sturdy enough, and that it was worth the money that they were putting out.
I'll jump in here too, but I think the question really was, why was it going to the courts and not to a city department like roads and bridges? And the answer to that is, in the early years of Pennsylvania history, in all the counties, the county courts, the Court of Quarter Sessions, and it was called that because it met 4 times a year, quarter sessions. That Court of Quarter Sessions handled all kinds of public works, bridges, roads, public buildings, that kind of thing, before departments within the counties were created for that kind of thing. It was the court. Everything had to be petitioned through the courts, and the justices approved it or disapproved it. And so that's how everything worked in the early years. Later, departments were created for that purpose. Why did the Morell estate, what did the Morell estate become? Housing?
Well, yeah, Morell Park is all part of the Morrell estate. Louise Drexel Morrell died in 1945, and she had an incredible amount of property that had to be disposed of, had to be sold, and a very big chunk of it was bought in one piece that became Morrell Park in the very late 50s, I think 59. They started building Morrell Park. She also owned a lot of property. Part of what is Franklin Mills now was property of her and her husband. They just owned an incredible amount, so it took a very long time to sell it and take care of the estate.
Next question. How did the Morrells and the Drexels make their money?
Okay. Well, the Drexels were bankers, and their father, Saint Catherine and Louise's father was Francis Drexel, and his father had started a banking company, and him and his brother Anthony and his brother Joseph were all part of that banking family. So when I talked about traveling into the city, Francis Drexel, when he was staying at his estate in Tarsdale, would, go down every day by ferry down to Center City and then, get off and go to work at the bank. Edward Morrell, he got money from, well, he was a lawyer, a very good lawyer. And his stepfather was John G. Johnson, who was a very, very famous lawyer, fabulously wealthy, art collector, and everything. So he lived in that household growing up. He was only about, I think, 12 years old when his mother married. His mother was a widow and married John G. Johnson. So, he worked with his stepfather and became a very reputable lawyer and became wealthy in his own right. And, married Louise Drexel, who, she was a Drexel, so she got a lot of money when her father died.
Okay.
Okay.
Does the creek have many fish species or much natural life on the banks?
There is a lot, and because we are taking, hopefully, better care, the Philadelphia and Bucks County, the Poquessing watershed of Philadelphia and Bucks County have cleanups every month. They do a wonderful job policing and trying to keep the area clean, and maybe there's a lot of life around the creek because otherwise we are kind of forcing them to that area, the wildlife to that area, because we've built up so much residential and commercial properties surrounding the creek. But when Jack and I go creek walking, you do see deer, fox, turtles, frogs, snakes, fish, small fish, bigger fish as you get closer to where the state road bridge is, the mouth of the creek, because it's much deeper and they're coming in from the Delaware River. But yeah, if you have wader boots and you have the inclination, I strongly suggest you do some creek walking because it's fascinating and it's beautiful. You will get questioned by neighbors as to what you're doing there because they're afraid that you might be casing the joint, so to speak. But it's a wonderful thing. It gets you really close to nature.
Yeah, I'm going to weigh in here. So Patty has been sort of dragging me out we haven't done it lately, but over the last couple of years, we get these wader boots, these boots that fishermen wear, you know, that come way up to your thighs. And we put them on and we take two cars and we, you know, drop one car off where we're going to end up. And then we take the other car to where we're going to, you know, start. And we literally get in the creek and walk in the creek or crick. Now, most of the time it's like ankle deep. It's not that deep. Every now and then it gets very deep and like literally over our heads. So we have to scramble up onto the bank and go through the bramble and brush and cut a path until we can get back and start walking in the creek again. But we started way up where the creek enters Philadelphia up in Somerton, and we've walked the entire length up to I guess where it crosses Frankfurt Avenue. And we haven't done that last leg from Frankfurt Avenue down to the river. Now you can't walk in it as it gets close to the river because it's really deep. But we've walked probably, you know, 80% of the creek, literally walking in the creek. And we've fallen down a few times and gotten wet, and but it's...
I've mostly fallen down.
Mostly Patty. I have to pick her up. But. All right, one last question here. Well, actually, another one just came through, but the one that I recorded. Why didn't William Penn order the Poquessing Bridge like he did with the Byberry Road Bridge? And I think this person meant like the Frankfurt Avenue Bridge. Like there, you know, there's the historical record of William Penn ordering the Frankfurt Avenue Bridge, you know, the over the Pennypack being, you know, built or rebuilt. And this question is, why didn't William Penn order the Poquessing Bridge like that? I think that's what this person means.
I mean, it was ordered by the provincial council when I told you they met it at Phineas Pemberton, I think it was, house. It was ordered to be built by the provincial council who were speaking on behalf. I don't know whether William Penn was in attendance at that meeting, but he ordered the bridges to be built all along the King's Highway because they went up to his home in Pennsbury Manor. And, you know, some bridges were, you know, just previous to that had just been done by the residents and they weren't very good. You know, they were just trying to get across when they could, but they got washed out a lot if there were floods. And also, actually, it was through William Penn that was ordered. Although there was a bridge there at the time, it needed to be replaced.
And another question came in. I just recently discovered Poquessing Creek Park. Is there some sort of trail map for that or a description of its topography?
There is. There's a website. I think it's part of Fairmount Park website.
I believe so. Yeah, they have trails.
And you can go in and see. You can enter it through Parkwood Manor's playground. You go straight back. There's between the basketball courts and the tennis courts, there's a path. You go straight back and it leads you down and through a small area of the park. You come out in a cul-de-sac. It's part of an industrial park. All of this at one time was the Philadelphia County Prison Farm back there. But then you cross the cul-de-sac, go back into the trail. You come down, you come to a T. You can either make a right and go through historic Mechanicsville or make a left and continue through the trail, which ends up meeting up with Benjamin Rush State Park. Now, where those two parks meet is not been paved recently, so there's a lot of water runoff, but it's doable. And at the end of the path before you get to Benjamin Rush, if you go to your right, you'll come to that Richelieu Bridge that I told you about. Now, the Richelieu Bridge, that was, and the Byberry-Bensalem Turnpike bridges were spoken about in the first lecture that I gave, and they are both really just crumbling. I mean, they're old, they're not open for traffic, so nobody really maintains them. Kids have pushed a lot of the stones into the creek, but supposedly in the spring they were supposed to start taking bids on repairing them. Not enough to drive over them, but enough to at least walk over them safely. But with the COVID happening and everything, I'm sure those bids did not take place. So we'll have to see. You know, hopefully they'll still be standing, those two bridges, by the time they go to repair them.
But Poquessing Creek Park is managed by Philadelphia Parks and Rec. So if there is a trail map, it would be available on their website. I don't know.
There is a trail.
Okay, there definitely
you know,
is.
if you do a little bit of research, and I don't have it at my fingertips, but if you go into, as Jack said, Philadelphia Parks and Rec, their website, and just look, you know, do a search for a map for the Poquessing Creek Trail, you will find it. There is one. I know. I've seen it.
Okay, that's the end of the questions. If anybody has any final ones, type them in real fast. Otherwise, we'll wrap up here. Thank you. Well, there are a lot of thank yous. And, okay, I think that'll do it. So thank you to Patty for a great presentation. We will meet on November, whatever the first Wednesday evening in November is. We don't yet have a speaker lined up, but we will, hopefully in the coming weeks, and we'll send all that out via our email list and put it on our Facebook page. So, and then of course the first Wednesday of December as well. So hopefully we'll see everybody then. Until then, thanks and stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Well done.